Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into Tee Legion today, and it's this wild mix, isn't it? Golf, but with knights and dragons and relics.
It really is. On
Mhm.
paper, you think, how does that even work?
Mm.
But the way they've fused golf fundamentals, grip, stance, alignment, the whole deal into this mythic TCG combat, it's surprisingly effective.
Yeah, effective and honestly pretty unique. That fusion is kind of the heart of it all.
It is, and I think it works because they didn't just slap a theme on. They understood the drama of golf, the control, the endurance, the way one bad shot can just unravel everything.
Exactly. Which brings us to the core of today's deep dive. We're focusing on the 4 pillars of the game, the absolute bedrock, the 4 core stats.
ZP, HD, DG, and YDS. Game points, hit damage, Dragon Guard, and yards. Get these, and you basically get the game.
That's the mission. We want to give you, the listener, the ultimate shortcut. We're breaking down what these stats mean, how they translate golf concepts like distance, defense, and stamina, and how they dictate, well, pretty much everything in a match. How you command your knight, your dragons, the whole flow.
Could have said it better.
Yeah.
It all starts and ends with these 4 numbers.
So let's start at the top, the big one. The one that decides if you're still in the game or packing up. Game points, GP.
Right, GP, game points. At its simplest, yeah, it's the score. It's your knight's health pool, basically. If your knight's GP hits 0,
Cut.
game over.
Exactly. Cut. Match. Finished. But it's more than just health points in the traditional TCG sense. Think of it as the knight's overall stamina, their composure throughout the match.
And the starting number really emphasizes that, doesn't it? 9,000 GP. That feels
Yeah.
massive compared to, say, a dragon's health.
It is massive, and that's intentional. 9,000 GP, it's not designed to be chipped away easily or taken down in one big hit like a typical unit. It represents that long-term resource, that endurance.
Like a full 18 holes, maybe? That kind of endurance.
Something like that, yeah. It connects to distance, too. 9,000 GP is almost like 900 yards on the card frame, visually linking it. It reinforces that your knight is the anchor. They're permanent, sitting back in the teen ground zone. They aren't meant to be traded or lost easily. They're the commander, not the frontline soldier.
Precisely. Their job isn't really to do damage. I mean, they can strike, but only if your lance zone, your battlefield, is totally empty. And even then,
The damage is pretty minimal, right? Like chip damage.
yeah, 200, maybe 500 HD, nothing compared to a dedicated dragon. The knight's role is strategic. Issuing command strike, defend, activate and managing your tempo, managing your dragons.
So if the knight isn't usually getting hit directly by big dragon attacks, where does the main threat to that huge 9,000 GP pool come from? How do you actually lose GP?
Ah, that's the clever part. The knight is vulnerable, but indirectly. They can't really hide from the consequences of their dragon's mistakes.
Okay, explain that link, because that seems crucial.
It is. It's the core tension of GP management. When your dragon makes a bad shot, you roll poorly on the strike dice, maybe a hook or a slice.
The ones we'll get into later, yeah.
Right. And that bad roll sends your dragon into a hazard. The bunker, the rough, the water. Retrieving that dragon later on costs you. There's a universal hazard retrieval cost.
And part of that cost is always.
Always includes a GP hit directly to your knight. Sometimes a pretty hefty one.
Gotcha. So my dragon fails its swing, maybe because its defense, its DG, was too low.
Or just bad luck on the dice.
It ends up in a hazard, and my knight loses stamina, loses composure, represented by that GP loss.
Exactly. It directly links a tactical failure on the board, the dragon's mishit, back to your strategic resource pool, your overall score and stamina. It's like taking a penalty stroke in golf that affects your final score.
So if I'm running a super aggressive deck, like Flame Wings, maybe I pump up my dragon's attack, the HD, and its distance, YDS.
And you probably skimp on DG, the defense.
Right, I ignore DG, but every time I roll badly, say a 4 for a hook, which cuts DG, I'm not just risking the dragon, I'm risking my knight's GP later when I inevitably have to pull that dragon out of the bunker.
That's the gamble. The designers built this in specifically to counter purely linear strategies.
Yeah.
You can't just stack attack and hope to rush the opponent down without consequence.
Because those GP costs add up fast.
They really do, especially if you hit multiple hazards. 2 or 3 bad retrievals in a match, and suddenly that 9,000 GP doesn't look so massive anymore. You might lose 1,500, 2,000 GP per retrieval, depending on the hazard and the dragon. It reflects that collapse of composure, that mounting pressure.
So even if you still have powerful dragons out there, a couple of major hazard penalties can put you way behind on score, playing defensively just to survive.
Precisely. And this feeds directly into faction identity. You look at the monk legions like Stonebacks or Iron Resolve. They often have knights with slightly higher starting GP, maybe? But more importantly, their dragons tend to have higher DG.
They're built to endure the bad rolls.
They're built to minimize the chance of hitting a hazard in the first place and to better absorb the consequences when they do. They want to play the long game, win through attrition, keep that GP pool healthy. They win by not losing, by maintaining composure.
Okay, so let's say the worst happens. Disaster turn, I lose maybe 3,000 GP to a couple of bad hazard retrievals. How do I get that back? Is it easy?
Nope. Intentionally slow and difficult. If it were easy, the penalties wouldn't mean much, would they?
True. So what are the ways?
GP recovery mostly comes from things that feel like regaining discipline or getting a morale boost. Certain knight commands might offer a small trickle, like Iron Resolve trickles, maybe restoring 200 or 300 GP per turn.
A trickle, not a flood.
Definitely not a flood. It emphasizes steady recovery, not instant fixes. You can't just undo a catastrophic turn immediately. The penalty has to stick.
And relics, any help there?
Yeah. But again, look at the type of relic. You see GP recovery mainly on supportive subclasses, course relics, for example. They represent the environment, maybe catching a good lie, boosting morale, so they might restore some GP.
Makes sense. The course is helping you out.
Or caddy relics. These are about guidance, stability. They often synergize DG and GP, giving that supportive boost, helping the knight regain composure.
What about the power relics? The gear?
Almost never. Gear relics, the clubs, basically they're all about HD and YDS. Power and distance.
Yeah.
They don't touch GP recovery because thematically you can't just hit harder to regain your lost stamina or fix your score.
Right. It's a different kind of resource. Okay, GP is clear. It's the score, the anchor, the stamina, the anxiety meter. Let's move to the battlefield itself. How do dragons get positioned? That's YDS, right? YDS yards. This one feels very directly golf related.
Oh, absolutely. YDS is the dragon's distance identity. It's not just a number. It dictates where that dragon has to be placed in the land zone, the main combat area.
Like choosing a club for a specific shot distance?
Exactly like that. It imposes what the game calls the YDS alignment lock. It's mandatory. A dragon's printed YDS value, and they always end in 0, like 150, 280, 400. Just for clarity, that number locks it into a specific slot in the land zone.
But you can't cheat. You can't put your big, scary, long-range dragon in a short-range defensive spot.
Nope. No hiding your driver in the putter slot. The game mechanics physically prevent it. A 460 YDS Basilisk must go into a driver or maybe a hybrid slot.
Okay, let's paint a picture of that land zone. It's like a golf bag laid out.
Pretty much. It's segmented by distance bands. You've got 8 potential slots. Down at the short end, you have the putter P slot. That's for 0 to 50 YDS. Usually these are defensive dragons, maybe some tricky low-cost units, or ones designed for that final tap-in strike.
It's moving up. Wedges.
Yeah, you get into the wedge. Sand wedge, SW, is typically 60 to 100 YDS. Dragons here often have abilities that interact well with hazards, fitting the theme. You have your iron, 7i, 5i, covering that mid-range, say 180 to 230 YDS roughly. These are your workhorses.
The core of your bag.
Your standard par 3, par 4 type threats. Reliable, balanced dragons often sit here.
And then the big guns, the power slots.
Now you're talking hybrid H, and especially the driver T1W slots. These start around 202 YDS and go up 280 plus. This is where the boss dragons live. High YDS, usually high HG, high risk, high reward. Your par 5 complexity dragons are almost always here.
Par complexity linked to YDS.
Directly. A par 5 dragon needs huge YDS, often 400 or more, which means it must be in that driver slot, making it a prime target, but also a massive threat if it gets to strike.
So that YDS lock forces strategic diversity, doesn't it? I can't just load my deck with only drivers.
You absolutely can. Or, well, you can, but you'll be incredibly vulnerable. If you neglect your short or mid-range slots, your opponent can exploit those gaps. If they take out your only driver dragon and you have no backup for that slot, you've lost a huge chunk of your offensive potential. It forces you to think like a golfer packing their bag. You need options for different situations, different distances.
You need the right tool for the job. Makes sense. But here's where you said it gets brutal. YDS isn't always stable.
Yes. YDS fluctuation. This is maybe the biggest tempo killer in the game. It's a fantastic mechanic. Really enforces the golf logic.
How does it work?
Okay, so your dragon is sitting in its designated slot, right? Let's say it's a 300 YDS dragon in the driver slot, which requires, say, 280 plus YDS. Now, imagine something happens. Maybe a bad dice roll gives it a penalty, or an opponent hits it with a relic effect that changes its current YDS.
Lowers it.
Usually lowers it, yeah. Let's say the 300 YDS dragon gets hit with a negative 100 YDS penalty from a slice effect. Now it's only got 200 YDS.
But it's still physically sitting in the driver's slot.
Exactly, it stays put. But here's the penalty. Because its current YDS, 200, is now outside the legal range for the driver slot, 280 plus, that dragon,
Right.
well, it just shuts down offensively.
Shuts down how?
It cannot be committed to strike, period. Until you find a way, use another command, use a relic effect to boost its YDS back up into the legal range for that slot, above 280 in this case.
Wow, so it's still there, taking up space. Maybe it can still be targeted, but it can't attack.
Correct. It becomes inert. A sitting duck, offensively speaking. And think about the tempo loss. You might have to spend your entire next turn just using a command or a relic to fix that dragon's YDS, instead of making an attack or defending.
That's huge. So controlling YDS becomes a weapon in itself. If I can't destroy my opponent's big threat, maybe I can just keep cutting its YDS so it can never attack me.
That's a very viable strategy, especially against those glass cannon, high YDS, high HD builds like some Flame Wings lists. You target their distance control, you force them to waste turns fixing YDS instead of hitting your knight's GP. It's a brilliant form of non-lethal control.
And that's why certain relics focus on stabilizing YDS alongside defense, the DG stat, like the swing relics.
Exactly. Swing relics often boost DG YDS. They're like practicing your form, maintaining your balance.
Yeah.
They act as insurance against those crippling YDS cuts and the tempo loss that follows. It really forces you to balance power with control.
It all comes back to that golf bag idea. You need the power drivers, the reliable irons, the defensive putters and wedges. YDS dictates the roll, enforces the position, and punishes you severely if you lose control of that distance.
And different factions lean into different parts of the bag too. Tide Wings might excel with low YDS putter SW dragons, gaining defensive perks. Stormscales might push the YDS boundaries on their drivers, daring you to try and cut them down. It's woven into the fabric of the game.
Okay, we've got the overall stamina with GP and the positioning and tempo with YDS. Now let's get into the direct clash. HD and DG, hit damage, and Dragon Guard.
This is your classic offense versus defense, the core of combat in most TCGs, but again, filtered through that Tee Legion lens.
Yeah.
HD is pretty straightforward. It's the raw power of a dragon strike, how much damage it deals.
And DG, Dragon Guard, is the toughness, the shield.
Essentially, yeah. It's the dragon's resilience. It directly reduces the incoming HD damage, but it also plays a crucial role in resisting negative effects, especially those tied to the dice rolls that can send you into hazards. Higher DG makes you less likely to suffer the worst outcomes of a bad swing.
And we need to be clear, dragons are the primary damage dealers here. Knights chip in occasionally, but the big hits come from the dragon.
Absolutely. That's where you see the really high HD numbers. Your par 4 or par 5 dragons might be packing 1000, 1500 HD, or even more. They're designed to take out opposing dragons, or, if the way is clear, inflict massive damage directly to the opponent's knight GP. The whole tactical game revolves around controlling the lance zone with your dragon's HD and DG.
This HD-DG balance feels like the main place where the different legions express their core philosophy, how they approach winning.
Definitely. It's the clearest expression. Let's contract the two main approaches, the sort of warrior versus monk philosophies.
Okay, warrior first. Aggression.
That's your Flame Wings. They are all about maximizing HD. They often have dragons with incredibly high base HD, but their DG might be average or even quite low. Their entire strategy is built on overwhelming force, hitting hard and fast.
Win quick, basically.
Exactly. They want to clear the opponent's lance zone in maybe 2 or 3 turns and then start hammering the knight's GP before the opponent can stabilize. They accept the risk that their low DG makes them vulnerable to bad dice rolls and hazards.
They're betting they can win the damage race before the GP cost from those hazards catches up to them.
Precisely. They're hoping for those good dice rolls, especially a draw roll 2, which gives a big plus 100 HD boost, fitting their strategy perfectly.
Okay, now the other side. The monk philosophy. Resilience.
That's where you find legions like Stonebags or Iron Resolve. They take the opposite approach. They prioritize DG. Their dragons might have lower HD, they hit less hard, but they are incredibly tough to take down. Their DG values are often very high.
So they're built to last, to endure.
Their whole game plan is attrition. Survive the opponent's onslaught, use that high DG to minimize damage taken, and crucially, to resist the negative effects of bad dice rolls like hooks, which cut DG. They want to stay on the board, protect their knight's GP pool, and grind the aggressive player out of resources.
They win by outlasting, by maintaining stability, while the Flame Wings player maybe burns out or takes too many GP hits from risky plays.
That's the idea. And they prefer the fade outcome on the dice, roll 3, which gives plus 100 DG, reinforcing their defensive stance. It's a fundamentally different way to approach the game.
And the split is mirrored in the relics they favor too, right? The tools they use reflect their strategy.
Perfectly. If a relic is focused on offense, on hitting harder or reaching further, it's going to be anchored by HD and YDS. These are your gear relics. Think drivers, powerful irons, tools of power and precision.
Makes sense. More power, more distance.
But if a relic is about defense, stability, consistency, it's anchored by DG and YDS. These are your swing relics. They represent good form, balance, rhythm. They help you maintain control, resist penalties, and avoid that crippling YDS fluctuation we talked about.
What about quick effects? Instants.
Those are often technique relics. They tend to focus on HD and YDS again, giving you those sudden bursts of offensive power for a clutch moment. But importantly, because they are high impact, maybe a bit desperate, they often come with a cost. Maybe you pay some GP, or there's an increased risk of a bad outcome if the roll fails. It reinforces that theme. Big power often comes with big risk.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, I think, because you can build the perfect deck, optimize your HDGG balance, manage YDS, but at the end of the day, every single attack, every strike command
Comes down to a single roll of the 6-sided die, the 1d6 strike roll.
and that introduces chaos. Unpredictability. Just like a real golf shot, right? You can have perfect form, the best club, but sometimes
Sometimes you shank it, or hook it, or slice it. The dice roll is the moment of truth that determines whether your carefully laid plans succeed or fall apart catastrophically.
it's not just hit or miss either. The genius is how the result, the number 1 through 6, dictates a specific kind of shot shape with specific stat modifications. Let's break those down. Start with the good ones. 1, 2, 3.
Right. These are your successful shots. Roll 1, straight. This is perfect. Dead center, you get your baseline HD damage, no stat changes, everything works exactly as printed. Clean, reliable. It rewards good base stats.
Simple enough. Then the next 2 are curves, but controlled ones.
Exactly. Controlled curves that actually give you a bonus depending on what you're trying to achieve. Roll 2, draw. This is the power curve favoring the aggressive player. You get a significant plus 100 HD boost on the strike hitting harder, and also plus 50 YDS, maybe representing a bit more rollout.
So if I'm playing Fling Wings, I love seeing a 2. That extra HD is exactly what I want.
Absolutely, it accelerates your game plan. Roll 3, fade. This is the control curve favoring the defensive player. You get a crucial plus 100 DG boost, making your dragon immediately tougher after the shot, and also plus 50 YDS.
So if I'm Stonebacks, rolling a 3 is fantastic. That extra DG helps me weather the counterattack or resist the next potential hazard check.
Precisely. It rewards stability and composure. Both 2 and 3 are good outcomes, but they cater to those different core strategies we talked about, the HD focus versus the DG focus.
Okay, but golf isn't always about perfect shots. Now we get to the bad ones, the mishits. Rolls 4, 5, and 6, and this is where the triple penalty comes in.
This is where it gets painful. Because these bad rolls don't just penalize your stats, they also directly correspond to hitting into a hazard, stat loss plus hazard risk. That's the triple threat.
Okay, walk us through roll 4.
Roll 4, hook. Think of this as the overswing, trying too hard for distance. You get a big plus 150 YDS boost. You absolutely crushed it distance-wise, maybe further than intended, but you sacrifice control. The penalty is negative 100 DG.
Minus 100 DG. That's huge. That could drop a low DG dragon into negative territory.
He often does. And crucially, this specific combination, the YDS boost to DG cut, immediately puts the dragon at high risk of landing in the bunker hazard. The loss of defensive posture makes it vulnerable.
So strategically, if my opponent has a low DG Flaming Dragon, maybe I even want them to roll a 4 sometimes. They get extra distance they might not need, but that DG cut makes their dragon incredibly fragile for the next attack or hazard check.
It's a double-edged sword for them, absolutely. You can use the possibility of a hook to exploit their low DG.
Okay, what about roll 5?
Roll 5, slice. This is poor contact, hitting it thin or off the heel. This one attacks your offense directly. You lose distance, negative 100 YDS. The shot falls short, and you lose power, negative 100 HD. The impact is much weaker.
Ouch! Less distance and less power.
Yeah, it's a really deflating result. And this specific failure, weak contact, loss of control, risks sending the dragon into the rough hazard. It's suddenly weaker and potentially out of ideal position.
And finally, the one everyone dreads. Roll 6.
Roll 6, shank. The ultimate mishit. Total catastrophe, just a complete breakdown of the swing. You suffer a massive distance loss, negative 150 YDS. This almost guarantees that tempo penalty if it was anything other than a very short-range dragon. And, critically, the dragon must make a hazard check against the worst possible outcomes. The water hazard, or potentially out of bounds.
OB. Whoa. So a shank doesn't just penalize stats heavily, it forces a check against the hazards that are hardest or impossible to recover from.
Exactly. The psychological impact of rolling a 6, especially with a key dragon, is immense. You commit your big par 5 threat, maybe needing that hit to win, and the 6 not only makes the attack fail miserably with stat cuts, but it risks removing that dragon from the game permanently if it goes OB.
That constant threat, even for the best dragons, must really shape how people play. You can't just ignore DG or stability.
You absolutely can't. That's the design genius. The dice roll ensures that risk is always present. High HD is great, but if it comes with low DG, every strike roll is a gamble. And when those gambles fail, rolls 4, 5, 6, the penalties cascade. Stat loss leads to hazard placement, which, as we established, leads back to that crucial GP drain on the knight. It's a full circle of failure.
Right. So those bad rolls, 4, 5, and 6, land your dragons in the bunker, rough or water. These hazards aren't just flavor, they're a core mechanic, aren't they? A wrist engine.
Absolutely central. They exist to punish overly simple, aggressive strategies, just spamming attacks, and to force players into careful management of tempo, resources, and risk. You will hit hazards in a game of Tee Legion. It's almost unavoidable.
The real test is getting out of them. Retrieval.
That's the moment of truth. When you use a command or a relic to retrieve a dragon from a hazard, 2 key things happen. First, the dragon comes back exhausted. It can't strike on the turn it's retrieved. That's a big tempo hit right there.
Lose a potential attack. Got it. And second,
and this is the big one we keep coming back to, the knight that's you, the player must pay the universal hazard retrieval cost.
which always includes that GP tax.
Always. That's the non-negotiable price for getting your dragon back. It's the explicit mechanical link. Your dragon's lack of resilience, low DG, perhaps leading to the hazard, directly costs your knight stamina and score, GP loss.
So that player trying to ignore DG and just focus on HD YDS, they're effectively taking penalty strokes constantly, draining their knight's 9,000 GP much faster than a player who invested in DG.
Exactly. They might win fast sometimes, but if the game goes long or they get unlucky with the dice, those retrieval costs will cripple them. It makes managing DG just as important as managing HD or YDS because DG protects your knight's primary resource, GP.
Now, the way you retrieve isn't uniform, is it? You mentioned different relic subclasses handle it differently using different stats.
Yeah, and this is another layer of strategic depth. The flavor of the retrieval, the tool you use, is reflected in which stats the relic focuses on. There are basically 5 main flavors, each with different trade-offs.
Okay, let's hear them. First up.
First, you have gear retrieval relics. These are anchored by YDS and HD. Think using a specialized club, like a sand wedge, for a precise but powerful escape. It's about using tool-based power and distance accuracy to get out.
But there are limits.
Yeah, typically gear retrieval is capped. It works best for your standard par 3 or par 4 dragons. You usually can't use just a finesse tool to reliably get a massive par 5 dragon out of trouble. Too much power involved there.
Okay, so gear is about HDYDS precision. What's next?
Swing retrieval relics. These focus on DG and YDS. This is about recovering through good form, rhythm, stability, getting your dragon back with its defensive posture, DG intact, and its distance control, YDS, reestablished. It's a steadier, more controlled recovery.
More about consistency than raw power.
Exactly. Sometimes these might have a small interaction with GP too, reflecting that discipline helps composure.
Then you mentioned the environment helping.
All right, course retrieval relics. These rely on GP and YDS DG. This is like catching a lucky break, a good bounce, favorable conditions.
Yeah.
Because it's tied to morale and the environment, this is the type of retrieval most likely to actually restore a bit of GP to the knight.
So getting lucky might ease the GP burden a little.
A little, yeah. It reflects that moment of relief.
What about the caddy? Seems like they should help.
They do. Caddy retrieval relics focus on DG and GP. This is pure support, guidance, stabilization. The aim here is to get the dragon back safely, high DG, while minimizing the GP cost to the knight. It's often the safest, most reliable way to retrieve.
But probably also capped.
Usually, yes. Like gear relics, caddies are typically best for retrieving up to par 4 dragons. Getting those huge, powerful par 5s back often requires something more drastic.
Which leads us to the last type, the high-risk option.
Exactly. Technique retrieval relics. These are anchored by HD and YDS, similar to gear but dialed up. Think of it as a risky all-or-nothing power shot from a terrible lie, a desperate gamble to recover your most powerful assets.
And the key thing here is
Technique relics are the only subclass that can reliably attempt to retrieve those massive par 5 dragons, the ones with 400 plus YDS. They offer the power needed for that kind of recovery.
But there has to be a catch. High reward implies high risk.
Oh, absolutely. It's the biggest risk in retrieval. If you attempt a technique retrieval and the subsequent shot shape roll fails badly, usually another shank result that dragon doesn't just stay in the hazard, it goes straight to out of bounds. OB.
Permanently gone.
Permanently gone. No exceptions. That's the ultimate price for failing the high-risk recovery. It mirrors the shank roll itself. Committing maximum power carries the maximum risk. You might save your best dragon, or you might lose it forever.
Wow. And that reinforces the finality of OB. Once something goes out of bounds, whether from a shank roll directly or a failed technique retrieval,
it's gone. Game over for that dragon. No relic, no command, nothing brings back. That's the ultimate check on reckless aggression, and why stats like DG and having a healthy GP buffer are so vital. You need resilience to avoid those catastrophic, unrecoverable losses. Hashtag tag outro.
So, what does this all mean when you boil it all down? We've journeyed through GP, YDS, HD, and DG. It's clear that Tee Legion hasn't just used golf terms. It's deeply embedded golf logic into its core mechanics. Distance, power, defense against mistakes, and overall stamina, they're all intertwined.
It's a really elegant system. Let's recap those roles one last time. GP is your score, yes, but more importantly, your long game stamina, the resource you lose when your dragons fail. Hard to get back.
Right. YDS dictates where your dragons must be and controls your tempo. Lose control of YDS, and your threats get shut down.
HD is your offensive engine. It's how you apply pressure, clear the opponent's board, and threaten their knight's GP directly.
And DG is that crucial defense. It protects against opponent HD, sure, but critically it protects against those bad dice rolls, minimizing hazard risk and therefore protecting your knight's precious GP pool.
And we see the different legions fundamentally splitting along these lines, don't we? How they prioritize these stats defines their path to victory.
Yeah, you've got the Flame Wings school of thought. Maximize HD and YDS, hit hard, hit fast. Accept the low DG, and hope to win before the inevitable GP taxes from hazards bankrupt you. They live for the draw roll.
Then you have the Iron Resolve or Stoneback's approach. Prioritize DG and GP sustain, build walls, endure the storm, win through attrition, making those hazard costs survivable. They appreciate the stability of the fade roll.
Which really leaves one big question for you, the listener, as you think about building your deck or planning your next turn. In this system, with the chaos of that 1d6 always looming, where do you put your faith?
Are you drawn to the disciplined grind? Building up that DG, managing your GP carefully, playing the percentages, aiming to outlast your opponent through sheer resilience?
Or are you the explosive striker, pushing HD and YDS to their limits, embracing the risk, hoping to land that decisive blow quickly, even if it means flirting with the disaster of a hook or shank?
That balance between the aggressive power of HD-YDS and the stabilizing resilience of DGGP, it's not just a stat choice. It really shapes how you define winning in Tee Legion, something to definitely mull over as you prep your next command.